In full disclosure, we are recording this interview Tuesday at 12:30. So not only does STA bring you things hot off the press, we bring you things when they're still on the press here. So we do appreciate the Congressman stepping away from the hearing to take some questions from us here today. Congressman, welcome. Listen, before we get into the hearing itself, I wanted to just first touch on just the pace of hearings that Patrick McHenry has been having this year. The pace of the hearings, he's committed to doing a lot of them this year. Yeah. And obviously the role of the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee that you chair.
Yeah. Well, Jim, good to be with you and all your participants. We're going to have to start doing this thing in person, but I know that there's also some benefits of doing it remotely as well for ease of access. But yeah, let me just maybe start with sort of the pace, what we've been doing, where we've been going. Truth be told, a little bit of rust in the machine after 4 years of being in the minority. And I wouldn't necessarily call what my colleagues across the aisle did for the previous 4 years as a well-oiled machine. But we had to kind of get ourselves back into it a little bit, and in all seriousness, half of our conference has never served in the majority. A significant part of our committee has never served in the majority. So it's getting back into it. So I think we're beyond that at this point now. Certainly, there has not been a lack of issues. Every time we thought we were getting our head above water, suddenly some three-lettered acronym, FTX or SVB or some other, suddenly just came to the forefront and started sucking all that oxygen out of the room. And that certainly has been a little bit of our challenge with that, but very active with the number of letters that our particular oversight committee has been sending and the information that we've been requesting. Number of hearings that have been moving forward is significant, and not to mention our actions on the House floor. I mean, first 100 days that we've had has been a significant pace, and hopefully we'll keep that up. I think we will.
Great. So listen, in watching the first 2.5 hours of what has taken place so far today, there seems to be three recurring themes that are coming up. So why don't we take on the first one here? And this seems to be remarks around the lack of responsiveness by the chair to congressional inquiry. So what are your thoughts on that? And I'll give you more than 5 minutes to answer that.
Yeah, the 5 minute
no, yeah,
the 5 minute reference, for those of you that aren't aware, is the 5 minutes that were allotted to do our inquiry. So it flies by fast, and tough with the management of time on that. Yeah, look. We have had a awful response rate and depth of information from this Securities and Exchange Commission administrator and his team. One of the things I highlighted at the committee today was the fact that on FTX, for example, we have gotten 214 pages total from all the information. And guess what? It was all publicly available. Nothing new. He would not commit to even acknowledging a memo that we know exists because staff told us it existed. And he would not commit to actually releasing that memo, which was the memo of recommendations of charges against Sam Bankman-Fried to us. And the audacity is just stunning. Then you get to the climate rule on this one. This one's a doozy. They have given us all kinds of information. Again, all of it's publicly available except for a couple of emails that were going in between, which told us nothing. And they were kind enough to include a copy of the rule twice. they were kind enough to give us all of the publicly available responses to the rule. They were kind enough to give us his public calendar, all of his public speeches. And this was the kicker. The congratulatory letter that myself and Chair McHenry sent him in 2021 when he became chair, they sent us a copy of that. And as I quipped, I've got that one in my file. That's not what I'm really looking for. What I'm looking for is, did you do any internal analysis and cost benefit analysis of this rulemaking? And if so, share that information. And he was dancing around, certainly dancing around a number of issues that makes it sound like, well, we kind of took the comments and that became our analysis. What was interesting is he admitted that that the SEC is not climate experts. Amen to that. Fully understand and fully agree. So then why are we having the SEC determining and deciding what is material and what is not, unless your view is everything's material, meaning it's material because we've decided it's material. It's material because society has deemed it important. That's not the definition, both legally or traditionally, of what actually materiality means. So it's been quite frustrating. We don't want to go down this route, but if we do need to compel documents and or appearances, we'll do that. But that's an uglier phase that I hope can be avoided, but it's really up to the SEC as to whether it will be or not.
And this hasn't, I mean, this is different. I mean, obviously we've had Democratic chairs of the SEC in the past. I mean, most recently Mary Jo White, and I do recall that comments from both sides of the aisle that when she was asked for information, that she would provide it and not publicly stuff. And not, I think you would agree with that, right?
Yeah, no, I would. And honestly, I think this chair has politicized the SEC in a way that it's not seen previously. And that is really the problem. So whether it's Mary Jo White or whether it is Jay Clayton, they played it down the middle. And I had my issues with Jay Clayton on a few of those things. But can you imagine the response from the Democrats if Jay Clayton sent Maxine Waters the congratulatory letter and his publicly available schedule and said, oh, by the way, we've been transparent and we've been very cooperative? No, you haven't. They haven't been at all. And that really is the crux of the problem. We've got a culture issue, in my opinion.
Yeah. So one of the other themes that seemed that there was, some consensus on both sides expressed. I mean, maybe it was expressed a little bit softer on one side versus the other side of the aisle. It's just around the rulemaking process that he has been going through. And I thought one thing that was interesting was that it does appear that, well, not appear, that he is, using the same process that he employed when he was chair at the CFTC, high volume, short comment periods.
Yeah.
Questionable amounts of empirical data and lack of industry engagement on that. So just some thoughts around that. I mean, I know, this is obviously, again, this is something that was expressed from both sides of the aisle. Just the rulemaking, your concerns around it, and what would you like to see him do differently in this area?
Yeah, well, okay. How about not flooding the zone with 53 different rules, first of all, right? And the amount of time, effort, and money and manpower that it takes to go in to tear those apart. And then as you rightly point out, Jim, a truncated, shortened up comment period time. And I think I heard him today, maybe borderline on I'll use the word brag, that their comment period now has stretched to an average of 70 days. Well, that is lightning speed in general. And then when you look at the volume of what is going on, more than one person internally has looked at it. Both those that are reviewing the rules, those that are having to implement the rules. That really it forces one to question what's the motivation behind it, and if the motivation behind it is we're just going to overwhelm them so that they can't actually knock these down one by one, that's a huge problem. And frankly, that's a dereliction of the duty that they have, both to market participants, the customers that are going to be involved and engaged in this, the regulators themselves. I mean, they're overwhelmed. And as he pointed out, they're not experts in everything, including climate. So why in the world are you just forcing this and moving forward in a way other than this is being more political than it is policy based? And, talking about the climate rule, at least with the Europeans, they were upfront and honest with it, where they said, look, this might affect returns, this might affect business models, but we think that societally this is so important. And you've got this SEC apparently, because we can't get the documents, but apparently basically relying on this is good for investors, it's good for companies, there won't be any backsliding. In fact, you'll improve your return. It's material. It's now interesting how the Democrats have adopted material and materiality as their new watchword, and they're incorporating it. Why? Because I think they were getting beat about the head with that, and they didn't have a good explanation. And now the answer is, well, of course, climate is material, and it's material to everything. And if you don't think it should be applied to everything, then you're a climate denier. Well, I'm actually a member of one of the founders of the Conservative Climate Caucus. I've been the Great Lakes Task Force Chair for 6 years now, dealing with Great Lakes issues. I've been on the PFAS Task Force. The Great Lakes Restoration Initiative has been one of my pet projects that I've been working on through three administrations. And, that's their fallback. Well, you must hate the environment. You must be a climate denier. No, I actually think that we've got to be transparent and open about what the costs are. And my business training says, if you've got an easy issue that's a problem, go for take care of that easy issue, right? Might be a small tweak. Now, if you've got a large issue that has a significant impact on whatever you're trying to do, you also need to focus and concentrate on that, right? Mm-hmm. And climate is one of those big, complicated things. But there's also the law of diminishing returns. We here in the West, and I'll include Europe in on this, we are running far cleaner than China, let's say, right? And yet, where's the focus go? It goes on to the West. It doesn't go on to China, where if there was even a small improvement there, it would be huge. Small cost would have great return over there. Yet we somehow allow them to get away with, well, we're a developing country, and you can't hold us to the same standards. And suddenly it's about equity and it's about fairness, when I thought it was about the environment. And we've got to make sure that we're actually focusing on these issues that are relevant. That's the materiality part.
A lot more to come in that area for sure. Yeah. Why don't we go back to a controversial issue then here is around the crypto regulation. And it does seem that some congressional members obviously have made the remarks that these 130 enforcement cases that the chair has brought this year, that through those 130 cases and that there has been, clarity provided to this industry, and as opposed to, with the clarity that would come with formal rulemaking on it. So why don't you just share some of your thoughts? Yeah. And by the way, just to go back to that 5-minute remark that we talked about earlier, I was surprised that Patrick McHenry spent 3 of his 5 minutes just trying to get one answer from the chair on his, on what is and what is not a security here on Ether. Yeah. So that was a lot of time to spend. I'm sure he had a lot of questions that he was hoping to get to on that. But just your thoughts around, the regulation through enforcement, and is there clarity being provided to the industry through these enforcement cases, or is it just more the same? By the way, Jim, not answering a question, that's called filibustering. Yeah, which is exactly what he was doing. And
I get it. That's a tactic, but that's unfortunate they're choosing that. So regulation by enforcement is not the way that this should be done, right? First of all, there's no legislative structure around it.
Mhm.
Second of all, there isn't the predictability that you need long term because there isn't the legislative. It's just no action letters, or it's it's a decision by staff people. Guess what? When the administration changes, which it will, at some point, whether that's in 2 years or in 6 years, there will be a change, and you've suddenly put all this in place, not through the legislative proper process and not by having comment periods and having a fully developed rule that it has consensus, but through enforcement. That's a recipe for disaster in my mind. So no, I don't think that's clarity. I don't think that is certainty. And when you even have regulators disagreeing about a definition of what is crypto, is it a commodity or is it a security? Well, it depends on whether you're CFTC or SEC. By the way, I'll impolitely note that as chair of the CFTC, Gary Gensler seemed to think everything was a commodity, and now as chair of the SEC, he thinks everything's a security. So I'm sure that's just pure coincidence. So we've got to do better. This is not something that should be the norm. Sadly, I think it's kind of become the norm, and I think it was one of the things Chair McHenry was talking about. Was trying to move forward with a legislative fix that he and Maxine Waters and others have been working on.
Well, so we got a couple of minutes left here, and I know there's no hard deadline as far as the chairman testifying today. Is there anything you see different coming up in the next couple of hours with them testifying, or is it just going to be a lot of congressional folks asking a lot of the same questions, but just from a different perspective on it?
Yeah, that might be. I mean, there are some things I wish I had gotten to. Josh Gottheimer and I have had a letter that has gone unanswered, for example, about market structure.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to have plumbed the depths a little bit more of why there is such a limited number of people on staff, both on the IT side where they have one person dedicated to this, and then the basically the government relations folks and the general counsel's office. They've got a very limited number. I think it's 4 off the top of my head. That are actually working on responding to letters, not only that I'm sending, but every member of Congress and the Senate are sending. Yeah. By the way, Senator Tim Scott had to join a letter with me and Patrick McHenry to be able to get the attention, and yet they still are ignoring this request for information. So, things like that I think would have been nice to have some time to get into. Certainly market structure has got to be part of that conversation that I would imagine my colleagues will further down the dais will be bringing up as well, because ultimately that is what the SEC is tasked with, right? Keeping investors safe, but also promoting fair and free markets and making sure that those are expanding and growing. And I don't think that's been the attitude that they've had as of late.
Okay, well, that's great. That's a great place to end it. I just want to thank you again for taking the time here to spend with us. And if I can find the stop record button, we can stop recording, and I'll let you.
I'm happy to be with you, Jim. So.
I know. Here we go. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is.